Hi, it's Katrina. This summer has been absolutely insane for archaeological breakthroughs. We had some pretty amazing discoveries announced in July, but they pale in comparison to what happened in August. The Tower of London was peeled open to reveal haunting skeletons. We've got an ancient cold case and even a mystery weapon from space. Let's start with a full-on mausoleum from 2,000 years ago, shall we?
Mausoleum inspired by Roman emperor.
In a quiet patch of France near Lyon, archaeologists dug up what can only be described as a VIP lounge of the dead.
They found a 15-foot tall, 50-foot wide circular mausoleum clearly inspired by the tomb of Augustus himself, the first emperor of the Golden Age of Rome.
And that's nothing short of amazing because the mausoleum is one of the largest circular tombs on the planet.
Octavian Augustus built it 2,000 years ago, following his conquest of Egypt, where he defeated Cleopatra and Mark Antony. You remember those days. The Mausoleum of Augustus is one of the greatest ancient tombs ever, and now it has a twin. Built around 50 AD during Emperor Claudius's reign, the newly uncovered monument once greeted travelers floating into the Roman colony of Vienna via the Rhone. Sort of like driving into Vegas and seeing that iconic sign. Nothing says welcome like a colossal grave flaunting your elite status.
Dig director Giulia Tucci said whoever was buried here was not your average Roman Joe. They had serious clout and probably a direct line to imperial power. It's also the only known structure of its kind preserved in France.
There are 18 other similar tombs, but most didn't survive history's passage intact. This is the only still standing mimic of the legendary tomb of Augustus in France, and it was part of a town that may have been burned to the ground. Excavations unearthed 3 charred but preserved shops, which had likely burned down when a fire destroyed everything in the region. One of the shops was a wool-working workshop, while the other was fitted with a furnace, probably for making glass.
Ancient fashion, fiery ruins, and emperor-sized gravestones, Lyon's got it all. We should probably add it to our bucket list, if you haven't already been.
Ancient cave in a Thai jungle.
Thai forest rangers on a routine anti-poaching patrol stumbled upon a discovery much older than illegal snares. While out there protecting the animals and saving trees deep in the jungles of the Khao Noi Khao Purdue Wildlife Sanctuary, perhaps you've heard of it, they found a cave filled with ancient rock art.
They practically went into a time warp when they found a sandstone cave with prehistoric engravings, including eerie geometric shapes and a cryptic 3-finger pattern. The cave is so off-grid it doesn't even have a trail. It was only about 1 mile away from the rangers' camp, and they had to use GPS to mark the cave's location and find their way back to base. But they only went back after they ogled the art for a little while.
It's not every day your job takes you to a cave where ancient human beings painted their thoughts on the rocks. So when it does happen, you better enjoy it.
Since the discovery a few weeks ago, scientists have announced that they think the artwork is about 2,000 years old. It seems to be from Thailand's Metal Age, long before recorded Thai history even began. Some parts of the world have civilizations going back 5,000 years, with their history recorded through primitive script on clay tablets. But in Thailand, there isn't even a whisper of a culture existing until the Roman Empire was already in full swing. Now archaeologists are drooling over the chance to dig in and learn more about the ancient Thai people. The Fine Arts Office is analyzing the site, and officials are already talking about giving the cave natural heritage status.
The moral of the story is that sometimes saving animals means accidentally rewriting human history.
Frozen Viking time capsule.
1,000 years is a long time to keep a secret, don't you think? But in 2011, a Norwegian ice patch coughed up a 1,000-year-old Viking pack horse net. It was the most action the glacier had seen in centuries, and scientists were pretty thrilled. The discovery came courtesy of the Secrets of the Ice team. They are a group of archaeologists who treat frozen mountaintops like lost and found boxes, and everything is free.
The net, made of leather straps and wood, was part of a transport frame strapped to a Viking pack horse. Think of it as a 1,000-year-old saddlebag, since that's actually what it was. The strap was used like ratchet straps to keep the kayak on top of your car from falling off. Radiocarbon dating confirmed that the net hails from the Viking Age. Oh, and it's the only one of its kind that's ever been found, so no big deal or anything. In 2011, this single frayed object took the world by storm and changed how a lot of people view the Vikings. They are always thought of as being these briny sailors who ventured forth in longships and raided their neighbors.
People don't usually think of Vikings as driving pack horses across frigid mountains, but they did.
And now, this August, during some follow-up digs, more fragments of the net emerged, along with a smorgasbord of ancient gear. Over 10 years after the original net was found, archaeologists just dug up bows, arrows, and a flag. A freaking flag! They even found scaring sticks, which were sort of like prehistoric noisemakers used for herding reindeer.
And they uncovered a 3,400-year-old hide shoe, a Viking mitten, and a whisk, because someone was apparently planning to bake over an open fire while dodging snowdrifts and bandits.
All of these amazing objects were uncovered on an ancient pathway through the icy mountains, where Vikings made long and arduous trips from one side of Norway to the other. These forgotten relics are leftovers of those old ancient road trips.
And now for a quick break, because I wanted to give a shout out and a big thank you to Doris Tweedy for the super thanks. It really means a lot, and we wouldn't be here without you. Be sure to subscribe to join the Origins Explained family, because we've got lots of videos coming up.
Mystery axe from space.
It came from space, but it wasn't an alien. In the jungles of Borneo, a guy panning for gold pulled something weird out of the mud. Instead of flecks of precious yellow gold, he found a tiny, funnel-shaped axe that might have cosmic origins.
The axe probably wasn't ditched by aliens, but it may have been made from space metal. This mystery axe could have been crafted from the bronze extracted from an ancient meteorite. The find happened near Paao village in Kalimantan, a spot so remote you need a 2-hour boat ride just to find a signal, let alone a prehistoric relic. Local archaeologists nearly fell off their stools when this thing turned up. It's the first funnel axe ever found in the region. But they aren't new to Java. Known in Javanese folklore as Gigi Petir, or lightning teeth, these axes don't look particularly dangerous, and it's because they aren't. They weren't used for fighting or chopping firewood. Lightning teeth axes were status symbols or ceremonial bling kept by wealthy members of a tribe as status symbols.
They have a prominent place in myth because the Javanese believed that funnel axes appeared wherever lightning struck. Their myths claim that funnel axes were never carved but literally fell out of the sky.
The whole situation got extra weird when scientists performed tests and found traces of meteoritic material, meaning this axe could have been made from space debris and then lost in the jungle mud for centuries. There's no word on how old it is or when it was carved. No one knows if it's a couple centuries old or if it was lying in the muck for thousands of years. The artifact is now being studied by Indonesia's top heritage specialists. They're hoping to rewrite the region's entire transition from using stone tools to practicing metallurgy.
And it's all because one guy wanted to find some gold. What's the craziest thing you've ever found while looking for something completely unrelated? Let me know in the comments.
Ancient Indian coin turns up in a Russian graveyard.
In a plot twist straight from the Silk Road archives, archaeologists digging near the Russian town of Suzdal unearthed something wildly out of place. They found an ancient Indian silver coin known as a jital, but it definitely didn't belong there.
The coin was minted sometime between the 8th and 9th centuries AD in what is now Afghanistan, Pakistan, or northern India. Jitals were the go-to currency in South and Central Asia, but they rarely show up this far north, which is why the whole situation is a little perplexing. The tiny silver coin's presence in Russia suggests long-distance trade routes were a lot longer than previously thought. No one had imagined Indian money would make its way into the Russian frost over 1,000 years ago. It's not even something anyone was realistically considering. And now here we are. A coin in a grave has proven that even in ancient times, the world wasn't that big, and global trade is everything. The final transaction that coin was used for will likely remain a mystery. Any thoughts? What do you think a coin like that could buy? The painted gods of Huaca, Yolanda.
Buried for millennia, a wall of technicolor gods and monsters has just emerged from the earth.
In the quiet dirt of Peru's northwest coast, beneath layers of sand and time, a mural waited. A full-blown technicolor 3D wall of fish, falcons, and gods. A 20-foot-long, 9-foot-tall prehistoric fever dream was recently discovered.
Carved and painted in vibrant blue, yellow, red, and black, its all-star cast of creepy entities look like they belong in the alien universe. The artwork is so epic, it's difficult to explain.
The mural was discovered hidden inside a ruined temple at a site called Huaca, Yolanda, with the Andes Mountains looming in the background. It burst into the light, revealing stars, birds, nets, and human-like beings that appeared to be shamans in mid-transformation. Cecilia Mauricio, the archaeologist from the Pontifical Catholic University of Peru who led the dig, called it a truly unprecedented discovery. And for good reason. The significance of the mural is even more striking when you consider its location. Huaca Yolanda isn't one of the big names in Andean archaeology. It doesn't even have the UNESCO cred of Chavín de Huántar or the name recognition of Machu Picchu. It is the underdog of Peruvian historical sites, the one that wasn't supposed to matter. Until now. The mural dates back to the formative period of roughly 2000 to 1000 BC. It was a time when Peru's first complex societies were just beginning to sketch out what civilization could look like.
Think pre-Inca, pre-everything. This is when temples first started appearing. Shamans started becoming local celebrities, and nobody had invented the wheel yet. It still amazes me how long it took the wheel to catch on.
Coastal vibes and celestial messages. Instead of the snarling rainforest beasts found painted at other Peruvian sites like Chavín de Huántar, the Yolanda mural has fish, fishing nets, plants, stars, and what appears to be a massive bird with a diamond on its head, possibly an eagle or a falcon, or some kind of prehistoric terror bird. On one face of the mural, you've got what looks like a shaman in the midst of teleporting to some other plane, looking like a kind of spiritual astronaut between worlds. On the other face of the mural is a winged bird stretching across the wall, flanked by celestial patterns and symbols that suggest the people here weren't just hauling in nets, they were charting the heavens. This was no mere decoration, my friends. This was the sacred wallpaper of a formative period temple, likely adorning the inner sanctum of a ceremonial atrium.
And what is a ceremonial atrium? Just the cozy kind of room where gods were invoked, sacrifices were bloody, and mysteries were kept secret.
To make things even more impressive, the mural is three-dimensional. The carving pops out from the wall as if they are embossed, not just painted flat, but sculpted to interact with shadow and sun. It is, given its age, some damn fine artwork. Why this mural changes everything.
This is a fully intact, color-preserved, 3,000-year-old coastal mural, and it is archaeological gold.
Most murals from this area are found in highland sites like Chavín, and even then, they're usually fragments. But this one is nearly whole, and it tells a completely different story than any other mural found in Peru. Where Chavín mythology focused on jungle beasts and highland iconography, Huaca Yolanda shows a sea-level cosmology. The difference between the cultures, even within the same country, are staggering. The Chavín lived closer to the jungle, so that was their way of life. The people at Yolanda lived near the sea and were fisherfolk who mapped the stars, who saw the ocean as sacred, and who blended the rhythms of the tides with the powers of the sky. And it really shows in their artwork. Mauricio and her team have now gone public, urging the Peruvian Ministry of Culture and regional authorities to act to preserve the mural. Did Neanderthals invent the bow?
The oldest weapons ever found were not made by humans.
Archaeologists in Uzbekistan just found a bunch of teeny, angry-looking stone points. They look like boring old rocks, but they might be the oldest arrowheads in the world. And you'll never guess who made them. Dated to about 80,000 years ago, the arrowheads come from a site called Obi Rakhmat and are so small and sharp that they were likely used as high-speed projectiles, which means ancient people might have been flinging arrows way earlier than anyone thought.
These cracked stone points are known as microliths, and they were previously overlooked because they were broken. But then, recently, researchers realized that these bad boys were broken in the right kind of way. They showed signs of impact damage, the type you get when something smashes into, let's say, a deer at 100 miles an hour.
At first, they were thought of as trash, just some useless bits of stone. And now they're looking to be weapons of war, crafted by people who weren't entirely human. The juicy bit of this new discovery is that human beings don't appear to be the architects of these objects. So, who made them? To answer that, simply take a look at who lived in the area 80,000 years ago. Back then, the region was Neanderthal turf. The tools look like something Homo sapiens would have made, but they were found in Neanderthal territory.
It's a bit of a pickle, right? And it gets even weirder.
Scientists found a child's skull with Neanderthal teeth in the area. This would suggest the arrowheads were made by Neanderthals, if not for one little issue. The child's brain case is a bit too ambiguous. Scientists don't think it was Homo sapiens or Neanderthal. They think it may have been an unknown hybrid, a mixed human of Homo sapiens and Neanderthal ancestry.
Now we're cooking. A new hybrid species crafting advanced hunting technology just shy of 100,000 years ago. But what does all this mean for us? For where we come from? I don't have the answers to any of these questions. No one does.
Sadly, no bows or shafts survived because wood hates time. But if this theory holds up, it means our ancestors, or possibly their rugged cousins, were using advanced hunting technology across Central Asia long before anyone gave them credit for. The Tower of London just coughed up a bunch of skeletons.
The Tower of London is a royal fortress, a prison, a tourist magnet, and now, unexpectedly, a skeleton jackpot. In the first excavation at the site in a generation, archaeologists dug into the ground around the Chapel of St. Peter ad Vicula and hit pay dirt.
Human pay dirt. They started with 2 skeletons near the chapel door in 2019. Then they went deeper, and they found more than 20 burials, including plague victims from the 1348 Black Death outbreak and 3 people in expensive coffins from the late 1100s. This is one of those discoveries that is ongoing. It's been 6 years, and the newest batch of finds was just announced to the public this August. Those coffins from the 1100s have archaeologists scratching their heads. At the time, coffin burials were specifically for rich people. Nobody could afford a box to be buried in, never mind the burial fees. So why were 3 very expensive coffins stashed inside the church's walls?
It's weird, but it's weirder when you know the tower's chapel has been rebuilt multiple times since the 1200s. All of those renos and nobody found the 3 giant coffins stuck in the walls? Really?
Coffins aside, the biggest mystery right now is the identities of the deceased. Currently, researchers are building up biographies from the bones using a CSI move called isotope analysis. It involves extracting information from ancient tooth fragments. Scientists know more about you through your teeth than your mom does, and she's your mom. One woman, buried around 1500, was middle-aged, possibly from Wales, and enjoyed a suspiciously sugary diet for the era. Remember, sugar was more precious than gold 500 years ago, and now it basically falls from the sky. The second skeleton, a young man, had a rougher time. His analysis revealed more stress, less sugar, and the fact he likely lived north of London. The woman who gorged herself on sugar may have been royal. This man was not. Still no ID on the bodies, but the profiles will help hopefully identify them one day. In the meantime, we can celebrate the other finds made during the dig. The team also found a rare burial shroud, stained glass shards, jewelry, and incense pots from 800 years ago. Some of the pots still contain bits of ancient charcoal. They were probably offerings to the dead, like the medieval version of someone leaving scented candles at your funeral.
Historic England's Jane Siddell said the skeletons are just the tip of the iceberg. Experts think there are more bones, more stories, and more secrets waiting to be exposed at the Tower of London. What do you think they'll find next? Let me know in the comments.
Who buried a baby in a Roman war camp?
Roman military camps were, by all accounts, man caves with better plumbing. Think grid-patterned fortresses filled with armored discipline, marching boots, strict ranks, and just enough wine to keep the morale above mutiny. Roman war camps were not cozy, family-friendly neighborhoods.
The soldiers didn't bring their wives, and they definitely didn't bring their kids to work. So when archaeologists in Leon, Spain, dug up the remains of an infant inside the barracks of Legio VI Victrix, they didn't know what to think. It was the first time anyone anywhere had ever found an infant buried in a Roman barracks. What are you supposed to do with this information? Maybe if the infant had been buried in a graveyard on the outskirts, but that's not the case. The infant's skeleton was found inside a contubernium workshop, a space normally reserved for tools, armor maintenance, and who knows what else. It was no place for a newborn infant, so something very sad must have happened here. Archaeologists were a little shocked, and now are trying to solve the mystery of this tragic secret from the past. Roman baby burials. First, some context. Burying infants during the Roman period wasn't unusual. Heartbreaking, yes, but not rare. Infant mortality was brutally high, and families often buried newborns under household floors, in courtyards, or near hearths so they could be close to the family. Think what you want about ancient people, but they loved their children just like we do. When a baby perished, it was buried under the floor of the family home so that the child's spirit was forever close to them. Military bases weren't supposed to have babies in them at all, let alone dead ones secretly buried behind the tool bench. These were masculine spaces, designed for marching, training, fortifying, and the occasional bout of existential dread. Military establishments were not for changing diapers. They were for building the greatest fighting force Europe had ever seen. So what gives? The answer is most likely forbidden love. While Roman soldiers technically weren't supposed to marry during their service, many of them did form families anyway, illegally and unofficially. It turns out Roman forts weren't as testosterone-only as they appear on maps. Women, children, lovers, and unofficial wives often lived in and around these military settlements, forming what scholars politely refer to as extra-legal domestic arrangements. Merchants were around too with their families because how else would soldiers get their extra supplies of goodies and snacks? Basically, Roman soldiers had groupies and families. Historians used to think they hung out in camp with all their bros, broing it up, doing bro stuff, But now the evidence is starting to point in the other direction. Roman soldiers had secret wives and forbidden lovers in camp. And when they couldn't keep them in camp, they kept them in secret shanty communes outside the main camp, although it probably wasn't even that secret. This baby could have belonged to one of those unofficial families. Maybe a soldier's partner gave birth while he was off fighting. And maybe someone, perhaps the mother, perhaps the father, perhaps both, chose to bury it quietly in the only place they called home. To confirm their theory and learn more about this specific case, researchers turned to science. What the bones revealed. Marta Fernández Viejo and her team from the University of Burgos and the University of León jumped on the case. They analyzed the remains through the lab lens of paleopathology and forensic anthropology. They confirmed the infant was perinatal, meaning either stillborn or having survived only briefly. The bones show no signs of trauma, no deformity, no disease, just a tragic, tiny end. One baby, one moment of loss, but it rewrites what historians thought they knew about Roman army life. The myth of the all-male, all-martial fortress has been busted. Roman military camps weren't strict boy clubs at all. They were like mini towns where soldiers lived, loved, and grieved. The tiny, tragic secret of one infant now helps us understand the complex human lives that were lived and loved within the cold stone walls of a Roman camp. Archaeology student hits ancient gold. Some people spend years being an archaeologist and find nothing but pottery shards. Others, like Florida-born archaeology student Yara Souza, show up to their first ever dig in the UK and strike gold before lunch. I'm not one to get jealous, but this story has got me green with envy. During a Newcastle University excavation in Northumberland this summer, Yara unearthed a 1,200-year-old gold medallion. Not even 2 hours on the job, and Yara had a piece of history dating back to the 800s. The small golden object is about 1.5 inches long and features an ornamental flourish on one end. It was buried near Deer Street, the old Roman road that once connected York and Edinburgh, and now moonlights as part of the modern A68 motorway. Okay, so we've got an ancient object hidden under a Roman road that was converted into a modern motorway, and all in less time than it takes for your pizza to show up late. Experts think the medallion had religious or ceremonial use and definitely belonged to someone important. Gold didn't come cheap back then, said Professor James Gerard, Yara's supervisor and an obviously proud mentor, trying not to combust with jealousy.
Souza, who missed last year's dig due to illness, said the whole experience was so surreal that she, and I quote, literally passed out. That's fair. You spend a year sidelined, then you show up and yank treasure from the earth like it's waiting for you. I'd pass out too.
Most students find dirt. Yara found her way into the Archaeologists' Hall of Fame. Can't wait to see what she finds next. Here's to hoping she becomes a household name in the business. And as for the gold, it's just a gold piece. You know, some good old-fashioned treasure. A 12,000-year-old cold case in Vietnam.
One infected bone, one exotic weapon, and one mystery that still refuses to die. Roughly 12,000 years ago, deep in what is now northern Vietnam, something went very wrong. A man, youngish, fit, minding his own business in the late Pleistocene, was shot.
This man was shot with a deadly arrow. It was a tiny, razor-sharp quartz barb, and it embedded itself near his neck. Whoever shot him was about an inch away from a headshot. Luckily for our victim, he did not die right away. He lived for months, maybe even seasons, with the injury festering inside him. He probably thought he was on the road to recovery for a bit. Then the infection set in, got worse, and he died. It was probably weeks of miserable agony. When our arrow-pierced victim died, his community buried him in the fetal position, face resting peacefully on his hands like someone curled up for a final nap. In 2018, our unfortunate friend's skeletal remains were found crushed like someone tried to pulverize his skeleton with a sledgehammer. It was tucked away in dusty pieces in Thung Bun 1 Cave, which itself is nestled in Vietnam's Trang An Landscape Complex. Scientists nicknamed the victim TBH1. And initially, his bones didn't tell us much. But as it turns out, TBH1 was a walking archaeological bombshell. He may represent the earliest physical evidence of interpersonal violence in Southeast Asia, an ancient murder mystery carved into bone. Ready to solve the case? The smoking gun. First up, the wound. TBH1's skeleton had an unusual feature, an extra rib. Most people have 24 ribs. TBH1 had 25. This bonus rib grew near his neck, a rare condition seen in maybe 1% of the modern population. It's a quirky genetic twist that isn't a good thing, but isn't a bad thing either. Except his extra rib was broken, and worse, it was infected. The bone had a hollowed out gap, a telltale sign that pus had drained from the wound over time. And that's the kind of detail you can only learn from someone's skeleton if they suffered slowly. TBH1 didn't die in battle. He died in the aftermath. Normally, cops have to search high and low for the murder weapon, but not this time. Archaeologists found a tiny, sharp quartz micropoint lying near the broken rib. It was equipped with a barbed stone flake no longer than 3/4 of an inch. According to Benjamin Udding of the Smithsonian, who co-authored the August study of the murdered man, the tool was especially intriguing because it didn't match any other tools found in the region. In other words, the barbed tip used to kill this man came from somewhere else, somewhere far away, presumably by someone on a mission of murder, maybe even a mission of revenge. Because let me tell you, nobody just walks across ancient Vietnam with some arrows to kill a random person. They must have had a vendetta. A rare glimpse into ancient violence. So here's the most popular theory right now. I'll give you the mainstream theory, and then I'll look for anything you might want to add in the comments. Sound good? Someone from far away crafted a specialized quartz projectile. They shot it, possibly from a bow or a dart launcher, and it hit TBH1 near the neck. The barbed point fractured his rare cervical rib, embedded itself in his body, and set off a months-long infection that eventually claimed his life. According to the facts, this is what happened. The harder part is identifying a motive. Was it war, revenge, a Dick Cheney hunting accident gone horribly wrong? Experts don't know, but evidence suggests it wasn't random. The exotic nature of the stone, the location of the wound, the infection, it all hints at deliberate violence. And that's what makes this find so significant, and why I saved it for last so I could give you all the grim details. This discovery potentially pushes the timeline of known hunter-gatherer conflict in East Asia back by thousands of years. It's more proof, not that we needed any, that humans have been violent creatures since the beginning. On the flip side, there's a softer twist in the tale. TBH1 died violently, but he didn't die alone in the wilderness. He was buried intentionally, with care. His body was arranged gently in a fetal position, his face nestled in his hands. This wasn't a casual dump in a pit. This man was buried by people who cared about him. And that there is the duality of human nature. Thanks for watching. Which of August's big discoveries did you like the most? Let me know in the comments. And I'm already gearing up for next month's big compilation, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. See you very soon. Bye.